The reality is organizations like yours that continue to spread misinformation and disinformation on the science around vaccines, around how we're going to actually get through this pandemic and be there for each other and keep our kids safe, is part of why we're seeing such unfortunate anger and lack of understanding of basic science. And quite frankly, I won't call it a media organization, your group of individuals need to take accountability for some of the polarization that we're seeing in this country.
He says we engage in misinformation and disinformation. That's not true. We've never been sanctioned by any fact checker or any of our social media companies for that, whereas he has been labeled a media manipulator by Twitter. He says that we've challenged the science on the vaccines. That's simply not true. We actually know the science on the vaccines, unlike him. He says that we have to take accountability. Well, we are accountable to our viewers every day. He's getting a little taste of accountability tonight. He doesn't do well with women who criticize him, Tamara, does he?
Nope. Well, and that's just more polarization. We saw that there was such divide in the viewers of that particular segment. And the funny thing was that I was actually on the line like, it's the Prime Minister. Maybe they're going to allow a follow-up question. And
question put to Trudeau by Tamara Ugolini, and she's ready to join us now via Skype from her hometown of Port Cobar, Ontario. How you doing there, Tamara? How are you?
Hey, good, thanks. How are you guys holding out over there in the live stream?
Well, we're doing okay. Sheila's here to keep me in check, especially when I start riffing too much on Rosemary Barton. Sheila steps in to save me from myself.
Yeah, I'm not doing a good job.
I'm glad it wasn't live.
I see you're also wearing one of those Rebel News shirts, Freedom Isn't Free. I think that's
right.
our bestseller you got on there. Thank you for wearing that. Well, give us an update. One of my favorite moments was very early in the campaign where you went in your own hometown to a restaurant you used to work at. The Liberals were there, and oh my God, they were so terrified of you. They tried to sneak in, they rushed in, they delayed it. I mean, you ask good questions, but I don't find you personally terrifying, and that's not an insult, that's a compliment. Why were they so scared of you?
Well, thank you. I appreciate the compliment. But it's just really surreal, I think, Ezra. You know, we see this happening to the Rebels across the board. And then when it actually happens to you, every time it's still unexpected. Why they're so scared? I mean, those prickly questions. I guess if you don't have integrity or a leg to stand on with some of the talking points that you spew without real criticism or critique, then how do you stand by the things that you say when you're faced with someone who's posing some logic and rationale to you?
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, I mean, I think you're very nice and your questions are always authentic and straightforward. Like, you don't ask gotcha questions, you're not a trickster, you're not coming at some oblique angle. The questions are so straightforward, you have a certain style, and so, like, there's no hidden move. Like, you're not pouncing. And if these cabinet ministers and others can't answer a straightforward question from you, how are they going to answer a straightforward question in the House of Commons question period? If they're negotiating with a foreign entity, if they're like, I mean, in the case you were there, I think it was Anita and I think we know the answer. She absolutely got taken advantage of in every contract she signed. I just want to play a clip for you. I think we have, we're going to play a clip of you just in your very friendly way, basically, you know. And I like the fact that you knew the other, because you know it's a town and it's
a small town.
There was a charm to the whole thing, and I think you've won over a lot of viewers by just asking severely normal questions, as a really authentic, normal person would. I call that citizen journalism, and I much prefer it to the sneaky agenda journalism in the Parliamentary Press Gallery.
I tend to agree with that, Ezra. And I think that speaks to how I became a rebel. I was doing on the ground, not necessarily journalism, but connecting within the community and asking some of our elected officials questions that I wasn't getting any answers to. And, sometimes I do really appreciate the rebel because it allows me to push further to get the answers that just the lay people sometimes don't have the opportunity to ask. And so that's been a huge learning curve for me, but also really valuable because I no longer just get stumped and then nothing happens. I can actually push and go further now. So that's been really great.
Well, I mean, you've had an interesting career with us, and of course, you're on halftime now because you have a new arrival in the family, and mazel tov again for that. But
thank you.
I regarded it as a very exciting milestone when you put a question to the Prime Minister on debate night. I can imagine you were excited. I felt your excitement. I thought, there you go. Tamara Ugolini from Port Coburg, Ontario, is going to put a bloody question to the Prime Minister, and it was wonderful. Now, in fact, if you've got that one, why don't we start with that one, Justin, and then we'll play the one where the Liberals try to keep you out. So here's just a great question that you put to Trudeau, and instead of answering it, he teed off on you. Here, let's take a look.
I have a question from Tamara Ugolini from Rebel News.
Mr. Trudeau, the only reason that I'm allowed to ask you this question is because today the federal court ruled that the government doesn't have the right to determine who is or is not a journalist. This is the second election in a row that the court had to overturn your government. Do you still insist on being able to make that decision, and why?
First of all, questions around accreditation were handled by the press gallery and the consortium of networks who have strong perspectives on quality journalism and the important information that is shared with Canadians. The reality is organizations like yours that continue to spread misinformation and disinformation on the science around vaccines, around how we're going to actually get through this pandemic and be there for each other and keep our kids safe, is part of why we're seeing such unfortunate anger and lack of understanding of basic science. And quite frankly, I won't call it a media organization, your group of individuals need to take accountability for some of the polarization that we're seeing in this country. And I think Canadians are cluing into the fact that there is a really important decision we take about the kind of country we want to see. And I salute all extraordinary, hardworking journalists that put science and facts at the heart of what they do and ask me tough questions every day, but make sure that they are educating and informing Canadians from a broad range of perspectives, which is the last thing that you guys do.
Well, he's a wicked liar. I mean, it's not the press gallery that decides who gets in. It's not a consortium of TV stations. He should know that. He nationalized the debates. We were not kept out for any issues of quality. We were kept out because of our political attitude, which the Federal Court of Appeal twice now has said is not a legal reason to keep us out. He says we engage in misinformation and disinformation. That's not true. We've never been sanctioned by any fact checker or any of our social media companies for that, whereas he has been labeled a media manipulator by Twitter. He says that we've challenged the science on the vaccines. That's simply not true. We actually know the science on the vaccines, unlike him. He says that we have to take accountability. Well, we are accountable to our viewers every day. He's getting a little taste of accountability tonight. And what a laugh for him to say that we're the ones who polarize the country when he's the one saying he's going to punish people, you people, and give consequences. I thought you put a good question to him that obviously got under his skin. Now, his people, his Liberals cheered at his answer. Oh, you put Rebel in their place. Yeah,
you showed that woman. You showed that pesky smart mouth woman.
He doesn't do well with women who criticize him, Tamara, does he?
Nope.
Well, and that's just more polarization. We saw that there was such divide in the viewers of that particular segment. And the funny thing was that I was actually on the line like, it's the Prime Minister. Maybe they're going to allow a follow-up question. And so I'm trying to interject because there was a lag in the live stream and us on the phone. And so I was trying to interject with my follow-up because it's his government that has been the leader of misinformation and disinformation throughout the entire pandemic. I mean, they flip-flop on masks, border closures, obviously Anita Anand with her procurement failures. So, why are you deflecting all of your government's failures back on little old me? I feature some scientists and some doctors and actual frontline workers. The whole thing was really sad deflection onto a news organization that doesn't have, the platform that the leader of our country has.
Yeah, I thought it was him showing he can't handle criticism from smart women well. We know that. We know he sacked Jody Wilson-Raybould. We know he sacked Jane Philpott. We know he sacked Selena Caesar-Chavannes. And we know he groped Rose Knight. So that's how he treats women. Let me show you our viewers. And by the way, I think you did a great job. And I think you made rebels across the country and around the world very proud.
Sorry, Ezra, I just want to interject something here because I thought Tamara's question was perfect in that it was very revealing. And it showed that Justin Trudeau will ignore the court just the same way that he ignores ethics laws. Because the premise of Tamara's question was, are you going to pump the brakes now that a court has told you twice you don't have the ability to say who is and isn't a journalist? And what does he say in his answer? You're not a journalist. I'm not going to call your organization a journalist. It shows utter contempt for the judges who ruled against him.
Yeah, that's a great point. Twice now the federal court has says you're breaking the law. Twice now he says I don't care. It's like he's
just like
three
ethics laws.
Convictions. Yeah. Anyways, I promise.
Well, and he kind of like stomped his foot there too when he says, I won't call you a media organization. It's like, are you a toddler?
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care. Like, I don't care what he thinks anyway, right? Like, I don't care if he thinks I'm a journalist.
Well, I know for a fact he's obsessed with us because he raises us in Parliament.
Rebel magazine, he called us. What an idiot.
He's the sharpest knife in the drawer. Anyhow, here's a video I mentioned earlier about you accosting a Liberal event, and they were just terrified of you. And I tell you, you're such a lovely young woman, and the fact that you cause such terror in these, I find it so curious, and I like it so much. Here, let's take a look.
It doesn't recognize you as a media source.
I received the email last night from the Liberal Party that showed that you are for open and transparency, and you actually, the wording in there was that you facilitate media coverage, so you're not allowing us as independent journalists into this event?
You're not invited to this event. I'm sorry.
And the event, was it an invite-only event?
This is an event that you're not invited to.
And why is that?
I was told you're not invited.
Okay, I'm a local resident here in Northumberland County. I'm also an independent journalist. These are public servants. The Liberal Party stands for openness and transparency. Is that correct?
I was told you're not invited to this event. Sure, yeah. I'll just ask you to wait here. I can make sure I can get the proprietor here, who can maybe have a chat with you.
Who's the proprietor?
Her name's Amelia.
It goes on for a while. I'm sorry to cut it off, Tamara, but I understand we have to go live to Alberta very shortly. But I want to recommend to our viewers to elsewhere on our YouTube page find that video. I admire your straightforward style that has no trickery or guile in it. And that's what makes it so powerful. I want to tell you, of all your videos you've ever done for us, the one where you were walking alongside the Peterborough police, and they wouldn't give you any answers, and they referred you to some public health unit. You phoned them, and they referred you, and everyone was passing the ball around. And a normal person, they would have, they were giving you the brush off, and I think other people would have said, "Oh, fine." But you actually called all the numbers they said, and you just kept at it. And I think your honesty and your openness shamed them. That is actually my favorite video of any video you've ever done with us. I'm so glad you're on our team. And thanks for joining us tonight. And before we go, are you expecting any interesting results in Ontario?
Well, I hate to make predictions because I feel like I am in a little bit of an echo chamber here, but everyone I've spoken to, including those die-hard true blue conservatives, several family members who've never voted anyone other than the blue conservative, have gone with PPC. So I'm really interested to see where that stands as we get into the more central provinces and then, of course, out west. I mean, I'm just really banking on the Liberals not getting a majority because we all know that that is going to wreak havoc on any sort of freedom that we can grasp onto that we have left in this country.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, it's great to see. I'm just looking at some stats here. We'll keep in touch with our Rebel correspondents across the country. We'll say goodbye to you now, Tamara. Thanks again for your great work.
Thanks, Ezra and Sheila. Night.
Cheers.
Bye.
Oh, hi. That was a clip from our Rebel Daily live stream. It's hosted Monday, Wednesday, and Friday by the big boss man, Ezra Levant, and Tuesdays and Thursdays by me, Sheila Gunn Reid, and my good friend, David Menzies. On the live stream, we talk about the news of the day, we show some videos, and we interact with our viewers at home. We stream at 12 noon Eastern, 10 Mountain. You can find us on YouTube, Rumble, Super U, and Odyssey.